Thank you very much. Welcome to the Salt Lake City weekly Zoom call Sanga. That was Ras Vilas with the opening kirtan. I'd like to welcome a few people on Facebook Live also. There's several as indicated by the cursor there. And we've got Anjali who has liked and whom we always appreciate joining us. You're free to make comments also on Facebook Live and we'll try to catch them as well as to respond to them. Today we're on the 11th verse, 2nd chapter, 1st canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. I'd like to welcome Ras Vilas Kapil, Sundari Priya, Ro, I don't know if that's it, Amber Jean, as well as Anjali as well. Good morning, one and all. So seeing as how we're in your home, Ras Vilas, it's our custom just to ask the person that led the kirtan, or the household that led the kirtan, to read the verse and the first paragraph of the purport, add any additional comments, and as always, to make the forum as free-flowing and organic and fresh as possible. Everyone can jump in, add their comments at any time. And the others of us, we promise we will not be offended by your jumping in. Probably it'll be a contribution, probably be at a point of angle or point of view that we had not seen ourselves, and so it's all good. Ras Vilas, to you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanvat Pranam, Om Jnana Timanandasya, Jnananjan Salakya, Chakshu Ulitamena, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. First canto, second chapter, verse number 11. Srimad Bhagavatam. Vadanti tat tattva vidha tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti pramameti bhagwan iti sabdhyate. So the translation is learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagwan. Purport. The absolute truth is both subject and object, and there is no qualitative difference there. Therefore, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan are qualitatively one and the same. The same substance is realized as impersonal Brahman by the students of Upanishads, as localized Paramatma by the Hina Grabhas or the yogis, and as Bhagwan by the devotees. In other words, Bhagwan, or the personality of Godhead, is the last word of the absolute truth. Paramatma is partial representation of personality of Godhead, and impersonal Brahman is the glowing effulgence of the personality of Godhead. As the sun rays are to the sun god, less intelligent students of either of the above schools sometimes argue in favor of their own respective realizations, but those who are perfect seers of the absolute truth know well that the above three features of the one absolute truth are different perspective views seen from different angles of vision. Shall I continue second paragraph, Prabhu?
No, just the first paragraph and comments.
Okay, Prabhu. So this is very important verse where it tells different features of Lord's Krishna worshipped by different devotees in these different forms. We can realize Supreme Lord in three different forms: Brahman, Paramatma, the localized feature, and Bhagwan. And actually, these are three labels of um, devotion to Him. Impersonalist, they understand Lord as Brahman, yogis as Paramatma, the localized feature in our heart. That's what they meditate upon. And then Bhakta, the devotees, they worship as Bhagwan, the ultimate personality of Godhead. Analogy of Srila Prabhupada provides is that of sun, disk, the sun planet itself. For example, the three features, we can see the effulgence as the sun rays. Then if we go deep, we know that there is sun disk. And then if we go further deep, we know that there is sun planet and there are habitats on the sun planet. So these are, and likewise, um, I'll discuss later on the analogies also provided by the ocean and a drop of ocean. The qualitative, they are same, but quantitatively they are different, infinite versus a small-minded quantity. The term Advaita refers to the ideal that Brahman alone is ultimately real. This is the Advaita, the impersonalist philosophy. The phenomena transient world is an illusory appearance, that is Maya or Brahman. And the true self, Atma, is non different from Brahman, that is the impersonalist philosophy, which was prompted by Adi Sankaracharya. Adi Sankaracharya came after Lord Buddha, just ruled out all the Vedas, Upanishads, just in the favor of Ahimsa, Param Dharma. And then Lord Shankaracharya came, but even at the end, what he says is Govinda Adi Purusham Tamam Namami. So unfortunately, his followers, they tend to ignore that message from Adi Shankaracharya. He himself believed that there is this personal feature of the Lord, and Adi Govinda Adi Purusham Tamam Bhagavan. Purusham, that he's a Purush, he has personal features. So, but impersonalists are also two types. Impersonalists, those who are devotees of Lord, and we should respect them because they are one kind of devotees, and then Paramatma, those who follow yogis, and then Bhagwan, devotees, right? So impersonalists, for example, four Kumaras, they were impersonalists, but Lord also appeared in front of them because they're true impersonalists. They believed in this effulgence, which is okay. So they are also devotees. What we have to be careful about is the impersonalists who are Mayavadi. That's where the conflict is. The Mayavadis, they are absolutely don't believe in the personal form of the Lord. So, but Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy promotes Advaita, that means, Achinta, Abheda, Abheda philosophy. That means we are different, we are non-different also. In Sanskrit, Achinta means inconceivable, and Bheda translates as difference, and then Abheda translates as oneness. This philosophy was taught by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, a direct incarnation of Lord Krishna 530 years ago. Advaita school asserts the monistic view, that means single view, and the individual soul and God one and the same, whereas Dvaita schools gave the dualistic argument that individual soul and God are eternally separate. But what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, okay, they are actually, it's in between the both. He promoted both. Lord is Advaita, Advaita Subheda, and Abheda philosophy. So the living soul intrinsically, linked with the Supreme Lord. We are part and parcel of Supreme Lord, and yet at the same time is not same as the God. The analogy is ocean and a drop of water from the ocean. Qualitatively they are same, but quantitatively, ocean is like we can say it's infinite as compared to a drop of water. So even in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, it says that Maya Dhisha, Maya Vasha, Isware Jiva Bheda, again the word Bheda, Hena Jiva Ishwara Shaha, Kaha Ta Bheda. So, I mean, Bheda, there's Bheda, but there's Abheda. The Lord is the master of the potencies, and living entities is the servant of them. That is our constitutional position. We are the living entity of the servant, and that is the difference between the Lord and the living entity. We are always the servant of the Lord, servant of the servants. So at the end, I would say there are two things we often time, people try to argue, especially impersonalists, the Mayavadis, and then among devotees also, there is realizing the supreme personality of Godhead at three different levels, which is fine. We all are respected. For example, Kumara Sampradaya, and then Paramatma, the yogis. And then the other thing is, once we realize that, okay, there are three different features of the Lord, then realizing that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Whatever the effulgence coming is coming from Krishna. Whoever is sitting as Paramatma, it is Krishna in our heart. And then the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Bhagwan is also Krishna. So realizing that two different things, although they're related, those promotes Advaita, that means Mayavadis, they say Brahma alone is ultimate, do not realize the Paramatma and Bhagwan feature. So, as Lord Brahma says in Brahm Samhita, Ishvara Brahma Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Kanan Kanana. So, what he is, Krishna is the supreme deity known as Govinda. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body, Sachidananda, an eternal, blissful, and spiritual. He's the origin of all. So, the The relationship between Supreme, this verse particularly highlights the relationship between Supreme and Jiva, and that can be strengthened only through loving devotional service. What is bhakti? This loving devotion service to the Lord. Scientifically, we cannot love an illusory object. Like if I say, oh, go and love that light coming from the bulb, right? We don't, because it's not a person. There has to be a person to be loved. Hence, pure loving devotion service or bhakti enforces the idea of personal features of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and traces the theory of impersonalist. And at the end, I would conclude by saying that how do we achieve this loving devotion service? By reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the narration of the Swarupa of the Lord manifestation, right? So however, much like to start a course, when we start a course, we have to take entrance examination, right? We have to qualify for that. So likewise, before even we start Srimad Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavad Gita is our qualification. We have to read, we have to know who we are, what is our constitutional position, and who the Lord is. And once we know about it, then to go in more depth, to know about his Swarupa feature, we need to read Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's what my realization is, Prabhu, about this verse. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, quite a bit of preparation went into that. Let me ask the group this question. Anybody can jump in. And we're also joined by Kashish for the first time. Thanks, Kashish, for joining us. Sarabi is back in our forum. Thanks for your returning. And on Facebook, we've also got Amber, Jean Bambrick, as well as, went off the radar there. Govinda Bhakta, that's not our Govinda Bhakta, that's another Govinda Bhakta, I think, who lives in Govardhan Echo Village. Rasangi, Keith Allen Cooter. Keith, Hari Bo. And Bear Montes, who joins us quite often. So what is the relevance? I mean, we talk about all this philosophically, and it's all there in the scriptures. But what is relevance to impersonal? Or does it really matter whether you believe that God is an energy or force field, or whether he's a person? Who can answer here?
I feel like the difference is only as so far as how you, like, in what method you worship them or how you believe in them. Because a lot of times when people think of God as a force, it's a force that I think, well, and this is just kind of my own experience. So, like, I'm not 100% sure if everyone believes like this, but in my own experience, I've seen that people who believe that God is like a force think of him as a force that punishes and a force that it just works to make sure that karma still exists. So if you do something good, then this magical force, gives you something. And if you do something bad, then this magical force punishes. And when you think of God as a physical person, like Ramesh Prabhu mentioned, that it kind of like you gain this third layer to it in which you actually worship them because you're in love with them and not to gain something and not out of this fear that if I don't worship you, then that's committing a sin and I might, or something bad might happen to me.
So you're causing a couple thoughts in my mind. Maybe you could respond to them. One is, I think why most people who resist the idea of God as a person, why they do so is because they really don't want to accept any higher authority than themselves. They don't want to surrender. And so they lack a basic humility, a basic clarity with regard to their position and God's position. So that's probably why a lot of people dig their heels in against bhakti and the idea of surrender. But on the other hand, surrender, unlike impersonalism, allows for mercy. It allows for the merciful glance of our Creator, our Father, who loves us, who wants the best for us. So if you resist surrender, then you miss out on the mercy. Does that sound about right, Ishan and Kapil, or anybody?
Yeah, because if like if you do give them, obviously I can't say that it's a weird thing to cope your, like, to get your head around that there is like this magical force that's my father. You can't really say that, like light, like Rasalas Prabhu mentioned, is my father, right? It has to be a person for you to gain that love. And I think mercy is just one of the subsets or facets of love. And if it's just some magical force, then you can't really think that they might, have some mercy on you, or they might pity you, because it's just a magical force that's going to do no matter what situation you're in, it's going to do what it's programmed to do. But if it's a person, then they have this, like, then that they're also looking at you, they're understanding your situation, and then they're helping you.
So I'm thinking, so based on what you're saying, I'm seeing impersonalism as you have to do it all yourself. Whatever you get, you have to do it by your own performance. What you get is basically non-differentiation. You lose whatever personality qualities and attributes you have in the interest of merging and becoming one with the Lord. I'm also getting that, from what I know, the processes of the impersonalists and yogis are very difficult, far beyond the ability of the ordinary person. Krishna says in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Klesho dikaraste chedisham vyakta dehavadvyarvapyate. Arjuna directly asks Krishna, which is better, personalism or impersonalism? And Krishna basically says that personalism is better and impersonalism is a very difficult path, and it gives an inferior and a temporary result. So am I right in those areas, or am I wrong? Anybody?
Prabhu, that's correct.
Right.
Yes.
This,
Go ahead.
Yeah.
this reminds me this incident in 2014 when you gave me the opportunity. So you and I, we went for this panel to one of the universities. Since we are on the Facebook, I'll just keep it there. And that was my first opportunity to accompany you and see. And it was not so much a debate, it was more a panel discussion. And you said that I'll give you a question or two, so it could be a good practice for you. So we went there, you gave me the first question, and the first question that I got from this audience, which is about 100 plus people, scholars of religion, students as well as professors, and they asked this question, why do you think your God is better than our God? So someone who's already nervous, doing this for the first time, that too in an audience like this, getting this question, and I was able to answer that because we are not so much focusing on who is better, like whether your God is better than mine or your process is better than mine. We were able to see that at least you believe in God. Like if you can believe in God, and that's what Prabhupada is trying to highlight here, is there are three different paths, and it's not so much about the process. It's mostly about the capacity of the realizer or the person who's practicing it. So it's nothing wrong with the process. It is basically your ability to understand. And that's what he says, that there are three distinct forms. First one is impersonal Brahman, that people who practice their senses and they try to achieve that path. The second one is through the meditation, and that is the path of Paramatma, that once you reach to a level of that self-realization, you can understand that, okay, it's better than impersonal Brahman, it is the Paramatma. And then the third one is definitely the path, the LDS path that we follow, of love, devotion, and service, the devotional service. And when you read Bhagavad Gita, there are ample examples that are given in Bhagavad Gita. When Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhave, matte sarve pravartate, he clarifies all the doubt that I am the supreme. Prabhupada also mentions that there is nothing wrong with the first and second path. It's just that they are partial realizations. As Rasvilas Prabhu mentioned and Ishan highlighted, that you just can understand the power or the effulgence. but you try to deny the source. So those, the first and second are partial realization, and the biggest problem is they both are perishable. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Neha Vikramanashvasti, that once you follow the path of devotion, even if you make a very small advancement, there is no loss or diminution. So I think that's the thing that I like most about our philosophy, that we understand and we try to enjoy the relationship. And when you know the relationship, you make time for that person. Like we make time for Krishna, and then we hope that he should also make time for us. And then you love wholeheartedly, and then finally you serve. So, and those three elements are missing unless you identify the personal who's involved in that relationship. So that's my understanding.
That's really good. I'm thinking that when one is serious, philosophical about life, one sooner or later comes to the understanding that I'm not this body. I'm not earth, air, fire, water. I'm not this flesh, bones, blood. The first level of spiritual understanding is to know that I am Brahman. I am spirit. That's called Brahman Realization. Now, one is meant to keep on going, not to stop there and claim it as all in all. The next level is the level of the yogis who have the realization of God existing within their hearts, and that's called Paramatma. And then the final level is that who realizes God is a person and aspires to see him face to face. Now, when you realize God in his personal feature, you automatically realize the feature of God in the heart and the feature of God who's a force, who's impersonal, who's energy. But when you realize him as energy, you don't necessarily realize him as the Lord within the heart, and you certainly don't realize him as Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, if someone's on the impersonal level of realization, I'm not this body, basically, we personalists are here to supply them information, to answer questions, to congratulate them, to applaud them, and to try to encourage them not to come to rest at that level, but to keep going. Okay? I think the problem is not, like you said, Kapil, there's nothing wrong with any of these three levels of realization. However, there's a certain ego that can come into it. And we all have this tendency, my team is the better. You know, the Cleveland Browns, the San Francisco 49ers, the New York Giants, the whole material world is running on this principle that my town is better than your town, my team is better than your team, my realization is better than your realization. So there's nothing wrong with being at the Brahman realized level as long as you keep moving forward. But the enemy is false ego, complacency, attachment, whereby one dishes or criticizes the higher levels of realization just out of false ego. What do you think about that, any of you?
The book Kansas City Chiefs are best.
No comment. Not going to go there.
Anyway, so
After that profound statement by Ross Vilas, can anybody say anything a little higher?
Ross Vilas, you're doing so well.
So, Prabhu, you mentioned, right, the impersonalists, they tend to focus, they spend time, and then they go on. And what they do at the end, they realize the Brahma Bhuta feature of Lord, right? The effulgence feature. But devotees, the true devotees, the Lord, they're already at that platform. So what they have to gain? They have to go to the higher. So they try to understand him as Paramatma and then go further and they try to understand his Bhagwan, the ultimate personality of God. Like based on even neurology, scientifically also, our mind is made up. My mind requires to conceive something which has form, which has feature, right? I mean, do you recall we go and see so much lights, right? You know, Do you recall that, okay, that light was this, that white light? We just tend to forget. Our mind cannot conceive. So our mind is also framed in a way that we mind tend to conceive the form of any form, whether it's a building or it's an object or if it's Lord. So scientifically also, it's true that our mind is looking for that beautiful form of the Lord, and that's where yogis and then impersonalists they run after, because their mind cannot conceive. They're just doing yoga, they're doing framing of their mind and just spending years and years of penance and samadhi. But the simple path of bhakti is so excellent, that Lord reveals to his devotees so easily.
And it's interesting to note too that wherever you are on the spiritual, whatever level you're at, Brahman level, Paramatma level, you can go to bhakti at any point. In fact, you're only going to go so far with the monistic philosophy. You're only going to go so far with Paramatma, and again, it's a difficult process. Krishna, on the other hand, is there to help us. We're not on our own. He's in your heart, and as soon as you start to pay attention to him, which is called bhakti yoga, as soon as you align yourself with somebody who's already fully recognized by the Lord, fully engaged in the service of the Lord, which is the Guru, Tadvidi Pranipradena Pranipasnena Sevaya. Krishna himself says, learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him, render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge in you because he's seen the truth. So at any time you plug into the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, then you can immediately take the elevator, so to speak, to the highest level. And you don't miss anything by not undergoing all the processes of the monists, by all the mental speculative processes, by all the yoga processes. You just get to go right up on the elevator to the top floor of bhakti yoga. Not only is it the highest level of realization, but it's the easiest. For some people, of course, surrender. There's nothing harder than surrender. But if you're willing to surrender to the Supreme Person and shelter under his protective wings and try to get his mercy, not that you do anything to get his mercy, but you take advantage of it. It's freely available to those who recognize his personality. The processes of bhakti are so simple. Krishna wants us to go back home so badly. He just says, Patram Pushpam Palam Dayam Yome Bhaktya Tadashnama. Just offer me in love and devotion. And the key is not what you're offering, but it is the love and devotion. Offer me a flower, fruit, leaf, or water, and I will accept it.
I mean, what is the fundamental of survival of humanity? It's love, right? It's not hatred, it's love. And by definition of love, the love is always in between the lover and to be loved. Somebody is to be loved, right? So there are features, right? So if we don't have the personal feature of the Lord, I mean, it's very difficult to love the Lord himself, right? So that fundamental definition contradicts if we think that the Lord is impersonal, right? So to love him, we have to realize that he is a person, he has personal features, and that's where the bhakti, the fundamental definition of bhakti is.
Kashish, are you with us? Are you out there, Kashish? I don't know what level of realization you're at or whatever, but I'd like to give you a chance to jump in here.
Yes, Hare Krishna. Yes,
Hare
I'm still here.
Krishna. What is that? Is that Denver or is that Salt Lake City?
That's supposed to be Salt Lake City. I believe it's Salt Lake City, but
Good,
not
good,
sure.
good.
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm just listening to everyone here in this room. It's a pleasure to be here and good to hear everything from you. So yeah, we were talking about love. Definitely, I think it's a connection we feel with the Supreme Lord himself. I don't have much to add as of now because I'm not sure where I fit in this room, but I'd just love to listen to you guys further.
Well, we're delighted to have you join us and to see your face, and to know that you're another one who's successful in putting up a virtual background. So, hi, Haribo. Surabi, let's go to you. Are you out there, Surabi? Give us your thoughts or your reactions to anything that we've thrown out there so far. Anybody's welcome to join our Salt Lake City Sangha from any part, and you're also welcome to comment through Facebook Live. But so far, it's pretty much a Utah-based group here. Surabi, come in. Okay. Haribo, Surabi. Your thoughts. If you're not, feeling so philosophical this morning, just throw out anything.
So, like in the beginning, I joined it late, but yesterday I read Bhagavad Gita chapter 13, verse 2. And what you explained, Charu Prabhu, it was Chetram, Chetragya, something like that.
Sarva Chetushu.
Yeah.
Chetragnam Chapi Mambidi Sarva Chetushu Bharata Chetra Technira Yatash Gyanamatama. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So I can connect those dots, what I read yesterday and what you explained and Rameshji explained. So I'm listening. I'm here, I'm listening. I'm trying to progress step by step.
Good. One scriptural verse which indicates ultimate diminishing returns of realizing the absolute truth through impersonalism, monism, is a verse which is, I'm not sure which canto it is. Yanayara Vindaksha Vimukta Manina Trayashtaba Vishada Buddhi Aroha Krishna Padam Patanti Adho Nadriti Yashmada Nagraha. It is said that the impersonalists, by exerting their jnana, their philosophical, their brain power, as well as their mental speculation, and performing severe austerities, they separate themselves from the common man. Common man are just what we call fruitive workers. They're interested in stimulating the senses, accumulating money, and expanding the influence of the byproducts of their body, their family, as extensively as possible. So the impersonalist, as I said, person who realizes they're not this body, so why exert all my life's energies to maintain and promote this body, which is going to be finished tomorrow or the day after? So obviously the impersonalist is a cut above, has more intelligence than your average person who are all just running around, like it said, on the treadmill. So he understands through exertion of intelligence and philosophical and scriptural injunctions that I'm not this body. And he rises way, way above what we call the maddening crowd. So like he's up in the clouds there. Okay? And so he gets distance, he gets separation from grief, from misery, from working hard, from disappointment, from depression. He gets separation from all of that, but there's still a problem. He's defined by the things he's not feeling. He's defined all in negative terms. He's got free of this, he's got free of this, he's got free of that, and that's all well and good. And we applaud you, but up there, he's just hovering. He's alone. He has no higher engagement. He has no shelter. When you get free of one thing, you have to get to another thing. Let's say you have COVID. Hopefully, you didn't have it seriously. You just had a mild case, headache, sore throat for a few days. So when you got free of COVID, you went to good, radiant health. You didn't just define yourself as, well, how are you? You didn't say, well, I'm free of COVID. No, you say, I'm breathing well. I don't have a headache. I'm eating normally. I've got my energy levels back. You got away from the unwanted to something wanted. And the problem with the impersonalists is that although they get a lot of distance between themselves and the temporality of this world, they don't get a higher position. They don't step into the real life of love, which is the nature of the soul. And therefore, arohakachena padam patanti adho, they fall back down into this material world. They take birth again. And because their conscience is a little bit rarefied as opposed to the average man, they generally, when they take birth again, they engage in humanitarian activities, open eye clinics or surgical for cleft palates. They do something in terms of humanitarianism. But the reason that they weren't able to maintain their high position is it says aravindaksha. They did not achieve the shelter of the lotus-eyed Lord. That's why they're right back, basically, where they started. Comments? Questions? Anybody?
I have just a thought. This has been, I think, maybe one of the higher level discussions we've had on a Sunday morning. Very, very interesting. My understanding from the 60s, when people were starting to meditate and try to achieve higher levels of consciousness, is that you can do that through a meditational process, which I've more recently come to know that the Brahman Realization. So when you achieve that higher level of consciousness, it's like a purification. It's connecting with the pure energy of the Lord. But I mean, when you realize that, what are you conscious of without there being some variety, without there being other living entities to relate to, without there being a supreme Lord to aspire to? It's always been my impression, and this is really a very blue collar kind of a statement, that if you reach that that level of awareness, it's like kind of a trap. There's nowhere to go, and you end up that the only way you can appreciate divinity through that monistic approach is that you achieve something like the word monism. It means mono. It means one thing. There's nothing but you and your consciousness, and everything else is gone. You don't have, the variety, the interrelationship, and in particular, like Ross Vilas was saying, there's really no love unless it's just love for yourself. But what is that? So that's a fairly discombobulated concatenation of thoughts. That's all I've got.
Hey, can you put that word in the comment section with a definition, please? That's going to be my new word for today.
What's that?
The word you said. What is it? What is the adjective you used about your thoughts?
Oh, discombobulated concatenation of thoughts. Oh,
concatenation. Concatenation. We want that. We want that. Shivan, any thoughts on the subject at all? Do you enjoy singing and offering food to a personality of Godhead? Will you verify that bhakti is so easy that even a youngster can perform it?
I would say bhakti, I would say it's not hard, it's not easy either. Every day, once in 2 days, I made a mandir in my room, and I give Bhagwan water every once in 2 days, and I put prasad there once in 2 days. And I would say first it was very hard for me. When I go to the temple, then I was like, should I go to the lecture or play with my friends? And then I used to play with my friends. And then I thought, then I went into Charu Prabhu's lecture, or Ras Vilas Prabhu's lecture, or Sundariya Priya Mataji's lecture, etc. And I thought this is way better than playing outside with your friends. And then I started learning mridang lessons from my brother. And then I learned how to play mridang. And then I would say it was very hard in the beginning, but there is this one like line that I remembered. Um, first, I read it in the Bhagavad Gita. First, it's a very hard path going on in bhakti, but then at the end you get a very good ending. But when you do something bad, it's a very fun path in the beginning, but a very bad path in the end.
Wow, that was profound. Kapil, what do you think of your child there? My gosh.
So this is disjointation of the thoughts.
But there's a very clear point that's coming through loud and clear. As a monist, what can you do? What do you even want to do? The goal is to merge, become one with God, lose your personality. There's no engagement. As a Paramatma realized yogi, what do? You just sit and meditate on the Lord within the heart. So these are obviously not activities that are accessible to a young boy like Shivan, who's, how old is he?
Oh, he just turned 10.
10-year-old boy. I mean, it's not possible. But a 10-year-old boy can set up a little altar in his home. He can learn to play the madanga. He can learn to give talks like his big brother. There's so many activities that anyone and everyone can do in bhakti. And that's another distinction between the Brahman realization, the monists, and the Paramatma and the yogis, and the bhakti yogis. And we've got agreement here from Amber. She says, I agree loud and clear. Thank you, Amber from Facebook Live.
The one thing that I like to highlight is, as we started this conversation, we say that, okay, you tend to compare someone else's path. But I think our path also makes us humble, that at least people, they are on this journey. They may be at a different junction when they are embarking this journey. And that's the thing that we like. We are not comparing ourselves with others. And I just realized this 2 or 3 days ago when we were on the day of Gita Jayanti, when we decided to read all the 700 plus verses of Bhagavad Gita. I think Ishan and Shivan, rather than competing, they got the inspiration, and they are the one who read maybe 60 or 70% of the verses.
Wow.
So there's this sense of inspiration that you draw or take from the other one. It could be in the form of competition, but it's a good competition to have. And see, that's what we have done in our childhood, sitting next to our parents or grandparents. And if only we remember at least one thing out of those many conversations, I think this, as we said in the beginning, Neha Bikramanashostis, there is always progress. There's no delusion on this path.
That's wonderful. It seems to me that those who are monists and those who are yogis, because it's a solitary endeavor and because both of them depend upon your performance, there's a tendency to want to distinguish yourself and to be in competition with others. Whereas you just pointed out that in bhakti yoga, there is also competition, but because it's not based on one's performance, it's based on reflecting the talents and abilities and attributes that God put in you. You can be the best that you can be, and therefore glorify God, give back to Him through the talents and abilities He's invested in you. You can want to be a better devotee than the next person without being envious of them. In the material world, envy means to minimize, to criticize, to try to drag someone else down. But in the spiritual world, you can say, wow, that was a great kirtan, Shivan. That was a great kirtan, Ishan. Now I'm going to try and do even more devoted kirtan. But the winner is always Krishna, and there's no envy or spirit of competition in bhakti yoga. What do you think? All of you, anybody?
I'm competing with Paki and Anu to get to their level in the understanding Gita and Bhagavatam. but I'm so far behind, but I'm catching up.
But you know, if you were competing in any other forum, those might try to keep you down. Those might try to withhold information or withhold advice from you. But in your case, in bhakti, your success is others' success. So I can very well imagine that Sundari Priya spares no effort to elevate you, because in doing so, in sharing bhakti, nothing pleases Krishna more than seeing us share bhakti with others. So your success is our success. Thank you for your comments. It's bringing up that very same point. Sundari Priya, I think we need to hear from you at this point. One of our most selfless members here in all of Utah. She gives of herself without any holding back or reservation. Right now, she's greeting a visitor to the temple.
Caru, this is the best thing that you have done, because you heard from the impersonalist Brahmins, the people who realize the Paramatma. Now we are going to hear from the devotee.
Now we're going to go to the real devotee who, as we join her in the lobby of the Salt Lake City Temple, is at this very moment trying to make a visitor feel as comfortable as possible. Come in, Sundari Priya.
This is Phil. He is inquisitive. He's been to India. He's visiting the interested in understanding what our scriptures are saying, and he really has a very good insight and wants to know about bhakti forever.
Phil, welcome. You're in good hands.
Guy.
Where all have you been in India?
As we see,
I've been to, it's called iskcon. It's Oneness University out in Chennai. I've been there several times. And we got very engaged in Diksha. We engaged with Sri Amma Bhagwan. And it's exactly what you're talking about here. So I feel very at home.
Did you stay in
he was
Amma's
surprised
ashram
that there are
there?
more Krishna devotees in Utah here, and
We took a boat.
Yes.
We took a boat
For a
in.
few months, several times. I've been to
Yeah, we took a boat. I forget, it was in Alepa. I think we got in the boat in Alepa, and we're going down river. And at one point, like 60% of the people got off the boat, and then another bunch of people got on the boat. And I said, "What's going on?" They said, "Oh, this is Amma's ashram. You have the option of getting off the boat, staying for a few days, and catching the boat a few days later."
Yeah. The last two times I was there was for the International Festival up in Rishikesh, which is in first week of March. And I just love that activity they do up there as well.
So Rishikesh means the senses of the Lord. So when you please the Lord's senses in bhakti, that enlivens your own senses. It says that those who serve the Lord actually enjoy more than the Lord. He's the recipient, but it is more blessed to give than to receive. So the Lord surcharges the senses of those who surrender to him and perform services to him in bhakti. That's where Rishikesh gets its name. Of course, you knew that, right?
Bhakti is a wonderful role model for me too.
oh my gosh, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, because Prabhupada is here, he's bringing all these wonderful souls, So I'm extremely blessed to be here to serve in whatever capacity. And Bhakti Yoga is to serve is to love, and to love is to please. And that you can only do with a person that you respect, a person that you honor, and you want to know what that person likes, what he eats, what he sleeps, how he dresses. We want to know all about that. And Bhakti Yoga is a lifetime process in dedicating to the body of Godhead. And Srimati Radharani is here to teach us, because she's the highest devotee of the Lord. So if we get a crumb of her mercy, we learn that what the bhakti process is nothing like that. When you can get the whole thing, why would you be satisfied with just the sniff of the a la carte? So you really need, the whole life is about. What I really like about bhakti process versus being, a jnani or yogi or Brahman realization is great, because it's their path, that's their awakening, and we all have done that in some lifetime. But I think the main thing is all our senses are engaged. When I offer the incense to the Lord, my nose is, remembering that. Offering the petals, I'm blowing the conch shell. We're completely, all our senses are completely engaged. And when your senses are purified, you remember that. Ultimately, we're here for purification. And when we do that in Bhakti Yoga process, and the good part about being in Bhakti Yoga, we do it together. We're not alone, so we don't get dejected and we don't leave it halfway. If you're in a slum in Bhakti Yoga, somebody picks us up, and look at the Ishan and Shivan. They're just by their vibration that next generation's getting it. It revives me to be better. It reminds me to say, what can I learn from the little kids that are getting it. So there's no law. There's only sky's the limit. Eternal sky's the limit.
Wonderful. What you're saying is basically there's a tendency for the mental speculators, the monists, and the yogis to segregate themselves. They don't want to lose their spiritual intensity by associating with people who are totally absorbed in fruitive work, in the temporary so-called achievements of this material world. And so they want separation to maintain their focus and their intensity. But in bhakti, we can be in community. Of course, we don't go to take the association of the meat eaters and the liquor drinkers and the people we don't go to take their association, but we establish our center and we welcome them to come and take advantage of our association. Or if we have to work to maintain our family or go to school, and there's no way we can avoid associating with people who have a lower level of consciousness, then what we try to do is build ourselves up enough in the temple or in our morning and in evening programs that when we go out and interact at the office or at school or in other forums with others, we're such a light, we're so spiritually surcharged that rather than getting negatively affected by others' association, we actually positively affect them. They're interested in knowing, why are you so happy? Why are you so peaceful? Why are you so joyful? Why are you not bothered by the things that bothered us? What do you have and how do I get it? And so that's the unique quality or feature of association in bhakti. Someone said, when you go into a room, you can either be a thermometer or you can be a thermostat. If you go into a room full of complaining, negative, mundane-minded people, you can either just be affected by them, just try to blend in, not try to create any waves. But if you're spiritually surcharged by good association, good strong sadhana, then you'll be more like a thermostat. You'll change the temperature of the room from negative, criticizing, gossip, and complaining to a higher level of spiritual inquiry. That's what we see Sundari Priya does every single day, and we aspire to follow in her footsteps. Home Tat Sat.
Without a doubt, Prabhu, so true.
So thanks for visiting the Temple, Michael. We hope that you get something valuable from it. And hopefully we'll see you when we go there, or you're welcome to join any of our forums as well. Our respects to a fellow seeker. Thank you. Are there any other comments here? Because we do have one more paragraph in the purport, and I think it would be good to throw that to Ishan. Let him read that last paragraph of the purport and add any additional comments, and then the final kirtan is going to come from the Sharma family anyway. So that can be our tentative program for the next 5-10 minutes. And anyone else that feels like they something has been unsaid or that there's a contribution they feel they can make, please feel free. We want to hear everything that everybody has to contribute.
You're reading about this particular verse. The two verses that help me better understand the message are from Bhagavad Gita. So one is the 14.27. That's a good verse where Krishna says, Brahmano hi pratishta aham, which means, and I am the basis of impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of the happiness. And then the 55th verse in the 18th chapter, it is very nicely summarized that Bhakta mam abhijananti yavanche asmi tatvata tata mam tatvo gyata vishaste tadantaram. Krishna says, one can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And he continues, and when one is fully conscious of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. So those are the two that I like the most.
And there you have it, right from the mouth of Krishna. The fact is that he misses us and he wants us home more than we want to go home. So at every juncture in the Bhagavad Gita, he promotes bhakti. The Bhagavad Gita is about bhakti, and anybody who translates it or comments on it with any other goal in mind is simply doing a disservice to people in general. They're actually contradicting or obscuring the will and the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who wants us back home, back to Godhead. So I would hate to be in the position of someone that stood in the way of a spirit soul and is going back to home, back to God. I would hate to be someone that obstructed that, impeded that, or misdirected that soul in contradiction to the wishes of the Lord. And that's where it gets a little heavy. So, and we don't want to get heavy. So let's just hear the second paragraph from Ishan and comments and go to the kirtan.
As it is explained in the first shloka of the first chapter of Bhagavatam, the supreme truth is self-sufficient, cognizant, and free from the illusion of relativity. In the relative world, the knower is different from the known, but in the absolute truth, both the knower and the known are one and the same thing. In the relative world, the knower is a living spirit or superior energy, whereas the known is the inert matter or inferior energy. Therefore, there is a duality of inferior and superior energy. Whereas in the absolute realm, both the knower and the known are of the same superior energy. There are three kinds of energies of the supreme energetic. There is no difference between the energy and energetic, but there's a difference in quality of the energies. The absolute realm and living entities are of the same superior energy, but the material world is inferior energy. The living being in contact with the inferior energy is illusioned, thinking he belongs to the inferior energy. Therefore, there is a sense of relativity in the material world. In the absolute, there is no such sense of difference between the knower and the known, and therefore everything there is absolute. I think this just covers what we've already talked about in this discussion, that as Rasadas Prabhu mentioned, that there's no difference in these energies, but there's a difference in the quantity and the quality or the essence that you get from worshiping these different energies. And since since two of the three energies are just a part of the first energy, I think that there's nothing different about the energies. Like it's mentioned here that they're both in the absolute realm, both the knower and the known are the same of level of energies. I think it's just this difference between quality and, I guess, how you would worship them.
Excellent. So guys, go ahead and tune up your instruments. Shivan, are you going to play drum or is Ishan going to play drum?
Shivan is going to be on the mridang, and
All right. And he learned from you, right?
It depends on how well he does.
Well, I know you're happy for him. One last verse too. This is the 40th verse, 20th chapter, 3rd canto. Yato mukad vishvulingad dumad vapi shashambhavat apyat ma vinabhimatad yaktag nir pritigomakat. It's explained that fire is one. Fire is one. The absolute truth is one. Whether he's in Bhagavan, Paramatma, or Brahman, it's all one. But the fire itself can be recognized in 3 different features as flame, sparks, or smoke. So we're talking about one qualitative absolute truth. However, he can be realized in 3 different features, Bhagavan, Paramatma, or as Brahman. One and at the same time, depending on which of those attributes or features you approach or interface with, you're going to get the neophyte understanding of Brahman, the slightly more advanced understanding of Paramatma, or the summum bonum, the ultimate perfection of the spiritual inquiry, the ultimate perfection of the human form of life to serve the Lord under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master with the ultimate destination of going back to home, back to Godhead. So God is one, but depending on how we interface with him, we get entirely different results. And right now we're going to interface with him by honoring and glorifying his holy names. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Rama,
Jai ho, good job. What was your estimation of Shivan's drum performance? Was it satisfactory, Ishan?
Yes, I think he's learned from me, Prabhu.
Well then, yeah, of course. Govinda, some last words. Did we? Do you think we brought it down to earth sufficiently, or was it too up there for the average for most people?
I'm way confused, but I thought that was an outstanding kirtan. Really, I think that was probably an original melody, and I think that has great. That should be done in the temple. Beautiful kirtan, and yes, I thought it was a great discussion today. I was just being self-deprecating, which is kind of my tendency. It's a very. This is my thought, honestly, briefly. We have words to try to describe something that can only be realized. And so I sometimes get lost in the words, wondering what the realization would be, because realization of the Brahman, realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I guess there's lots of levels. Haribol.
Haribo, Haribo.
Prabhu,
Thank
to
you.
answer your question, so when Madhav Prabhu was here and staying at Rasadas Prabhu's place, Krishna actually invited me to come over, and we had like a few mridang lessons from him and Vrindavan Kirtan Prabhu. And then also he showed me this melody. I recorded it, but then I kind of lost the recording. But then I found it like a week or two ago, and then so I just revisited it and relearned it, I guess. But yeah, it's his melody and his chords and everything. So
Well, revisiting would be a good thing to do as often as possible.
Yeah, very well.
Over here on Facebook, I'd like to thank Jayashree Radha for joining us. She said it was a very enlivening discussion. Andarupa Devi Dasi, who's A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada disciple. Mary and Patrick from Reno jumped in. Sanjay Dumyan joined us. The Govinda Bhakta, I think, from India. Rasangi, who is Santa Cruz area, I believe. Keith Allen Cooter. Hey, Keith, Haribol. Anjali from Phoenix, Arizona. Dibya Joshi and Bear Montes were with us on Facebook Live. And if you want to know what their comments were, you can just shift over there. We're also going to keep this on Facebook Live for anyone who wants to come along after the fact and listen, as well as post it on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, we encourage you to do so, because there are tons and tons of videos, not only having to do with the Utah Yatra, but there's videos from all kinds of speakers, all kinds of countries, everything we've been able to collate over the last 20 years. Pretty much everything iskcon related, every iskcon speaker, they're right there on our YouTube channel. So go ahead and join. Thank you very much, Ishan, Shivan, Kapil, Sarabi, Mike, Sundari Priya. Onkar joined us a little bit later. Ras Vilas. Amrita Sundari kind of came on and went off, so we didn't get a chance to hear from her. I'm missing somebody, I'm sure. Oh, Ro. We had a Ro on earlier. And then also Kapish. Kapish with the wonderful Salt Lake City skyline background. Govinda Dev, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you all of us. It was a wonderful discussion, and if I may say so, you're all getting more articulate and more incisive every week. And so I think that anybody who drops in, either here on Facebook, will be very fortunate to hear from all of you emerging, maturing, great souls who join us every week. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Let's finish with a couple of recitations, the Maha mantra together. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyascha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namaha. I found that if I raise my arms all together, I will disappear. So I want you all to see Charu's mystic powers, how he disappears from the forum.
That's a good one, bro. Good one.